Okay, so this is something that happened to me when I was living on Page Road. That is a road that runs perpendicular to Comedy. I used to rent a room in this kind of like townhouse that was built in probably like the 70s or something, and it had like wooden floorboards and like these creepy staircases, and it was full of character. And one of my favorite things about this place is that it had this like huge backyard with like bamboo thickets and trees, and there was like a mango tree from the neighbor's yard but it used to hang over, so it was like having a mango tree. And there was like a lawn that was green in the rainy season, and my room overlooked it, so it was just like this really nice thing to have in the middle of St. Augustine. So but the thing is, like, no one ever went into the backyard. And the reason no one ever went into the backyard is because right beyond the backyard, there was this huge drain. And this is a drain that runs along the side of Spec, so it's really big. And in the drain, there was this community that lived there. Most likely of pipers. They used to like set up like the shelters and cook on ring stoves and play music and do whatever. But they never really bothered anyone. They mostly would do is come to like steal mangoes from the neighbors slash our tree, and but they never like bothered or hurt anyone. But still, people never went into the backyard because they were afraid. Mainly because I think, well, the street on the other side of the drain, the one that runs parallel to Page, is really dangerous because there's a lot of drugs and the police always go in there, and it's really scary sometimes. And we have heard people get shot and murdered on that road already. Like literally heard the gunshots sound like they were coming from the drain. So no one ever went there. And yeah. So one night I was lying in a room. It was probably, I remember it being like a cool, chilly, rainy night. Um, but I was living with a friend, and it was really quiet and calm when kind of like all of a sudden out of nowhere I heard this sound of someone screaming, like a blood curdling scream, and then a man shouting for help, like just help, help. And he was just shouting, somebody help me. And I got up and I was looking out the window to see where it was coming from, but I couldn't see anything because it was coming from the backyard, but I couldn't see anything because I realized, well, it was coming from inside of the drain. But from my room, I couldn't see inside of the drain. So instead, I just kind of like stood there at the window, and I was shouting like, hello, is anybody there? Could you hear me? But they couldn't hear me because it was too far away. And he just kept shouting help. And I was kind of like half expecting people to like run outside and see what's wrong and like try to help the man because he was shouting so much. Because that's what would have happened where I came from. But nobody did that. And without thinking about it, I just kind of like ran downstairs and like unlocked the side gate and ran. And I took a few steps across the backyard, and I immediately stopped because I felt like one of the most like just like disgusting things I felt in my life, just like gross. And well, it was a crunch, and then the feeling of stepping on a huge snail. And that just stopped me right in my tracks, because I realized two things. I realized that the entire backyard was covered in like what seemed like hundreds and hundreds of snails. Like every piece of the backyard was just covered in snails, and it was the most surreal thing that I've like seen. Just like all these snails in the middle of this huge space. And the second thing I realized was that the screaming had stopped. And the time it took for me to run downstairs, the screaming had stopped. And I just stood there at the edge of the yard, and my friend kind of like ran behind me at this point and was telling me like, don't go any further, it's dangerous, which is a fair point. So I stopped, and I was still shouting like, "Hello, is anybody there? Can you help me? Do you need help? I mean, is anybody there? Do you need help? Can I help you?" But there was no response, and I didn't hear anything. And after like 5 minutes of doing that, I just kind of went upstairs. And the next day, I went and I like asked my neighbors if they heard anything or what was that about. No one said that they heard anything. Like everyone said they didn't hear any screaming or anything. So I don't know what happened that night. I don't know what happened to the man, or like if he was hurt or what happened. But yeah, okay. So that's it.